get your finger out of my Johnny, so it'll pick you up with a sieve.
Don't try it. Oh, wait.
I'll speak to you when you're well dressed.
Who are you? You unfunny, lucky, stupid.
Stop calling me a crypto-Nazi.
Let's stop calling names.
You and your goddamn face.
You know, that's the kind of guy I am.
Yeah, okay.
And I was saying to your wife the other night,
There are 10 men waiting for you at your apartment. Do you remember what you answered?
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm a little tired tonight. One of those guys will have to go.
Mae West was a true entertainment renegade, the original blonde bombshell. As an actress, singer, comedian, screenwriter and playwright, she captivated audiences with her fearless charisma and unapologetic sexuality. Her screen persona mirrored her real-life personality, rebelling against both censorship and the archaic expectations of women. However, in 1956, her status as the embodiment of female empowerment and sexual desire was unreasonably threatened by a bemused Mr. Universe, Mickey Hargitay, for committing in her eyes the crime of the century, ending in a dramatic press conference where he was knocked out cold by a man as meaty as him. Here is the story of Mae West versus Mickey Hargitay and Jayne Mansfield. Let's see where these people were up to up until the infamous June 1956 incident.
Mankind is made up of inferior creatures, spiritually and physically deformed, who would have corrupted the harmony of my perfect body.
Mickey Hargitay was a Hungarian actor and bodybuilder, providing inspiration to Arnold Schwarzenegger, who played him in a biopic in 1980.
I don't even know you anymore. You're not the same Jayne I married.
Born in Budapest in 1926, him and his brothers were raised by their father to be dedicated athletes. In his youth, he toured Hungary with the circus as an adagio acrobat. Building on his drive to achieve physical perfection, he excelled at speed skating, football, and long-distance running. But this took a backseat during the Second World War. He became an underground resistance fighter when the Nazis coerced Hungary to join the Axis powers. In 1947, there was a mandatory military Soviet draft, where he would be sent to Russia for 4 years, leading him to make the gut-wrenching decision to leave his family and flee to the safe harbor of the United States of America. Him and his first wife Mary would make their money touring nightclubs, performing adagio routines that he perfected in his youth. After seeing the success of Steve Reeves, he trained diligently for bodybuilding competitions with enormous success.
The amateur winner is Mickey Hargitay of the United States.
His profile grew and grew, appearing as a pin-up in various magazines, winning numerous competitions, and most notably achieving the accolade of Mr. Universe in 1955.
And now, at last, you'll witness the glory of his return.
He became the face and veiny biceps of the bodybuilding industry. Writer Walter Winchell stated, "What President Eisenhower did for golf, Mickey Hargitay did for bodybuilding, because he brought it to the forefront."
Irving, I love you.
George Wellington, Jr., I wish you were like any ordinary girl.
I'm Norma Irving, and I'm in love.
I wish you stopped that giggle.
Sometimes, Irving, I wish you were a little bit like Herman. He'd never let an opportunity like this get away.
Jayne Mansfield is a pop culture legend. Born in 1933, she was an actress, singer, and early Playboy centerfold. She came to nationwide prominence in the 1950s, shooting to movie stardom in 1956's The Girl Can't Help It. 20th Century Fox cultivated her as an alternative to Marilyn Monroe and became known as the working man's Monroe. She was also known for her notorious personal life and publicity stunts, including a dinner sat next to legendary Italian screen siren Sophia Loren, upstaging her in an infamous photo where even notorious bosom owner Sophia Loren is left in awe, gazing at Mansfield's cleavage.
And I can be of great assistance to you. I can't tell you the number of men I've helped to realize themselves.
Well, now say, I don't know how to thank you.
Well, don't bother with that now.
Mae West was born in Brooklyn in 1893. She started performing at the age of 5, and it was during her years in vaudeville where she developed her talents and skills, starring in Broadway at just the age of 18. She gained superlative reviews for her snappy delivery and energetic stage presence. Becoming frustrated with the lack of quality roles that were offered to her, in 1926 she decided to write and star in her own play, titled Sex. In the comedy drama, she played a sex worker. The play delved into the darker and seedier elements of society. Her character Margie was hard-edged, wanting a better life, but not needing to be saved. The unjust stigma of prostitution is highlighted rather than prostitution itself, but the world wasn't ready. After being panned by conservative and religious groups, after 300 performances, Mae was arrested, charged and sentenced to 10 days in prison for corrupting the morals of youth. Now, she could have accepted a fine with no jail time, but knew the publicity of a jail sentence would garner more notoriety.
You bad girl.
You'll find out.
This painted her with a bad girl image that she knew would be advantageous to her career. The establishment's reviews of her stage work were largely negative, but mainly focused on what they perceived as the immoral, lurid and lascivious subject matter. Mae, however, was becoming more notorious with the public as a daring maverick, pushing against the societal norms, being lavished with increased media spotlight.
Some of they played. Savage is there.
She put her stage career on hold and at the age of 40 accepted an offer from Hollywood. Mae would insist on being allowed to edit the lines in her scripts, which would allow her to stamp her own personality onto her characters. Her film career was an immediate success, stealing scenes from already established actors, becoming an immediate box office draw. By 1935, she became the highest paid woman and second highest paid person in America. F. Scott Fitzgerald said about West, "Mae is the only Hollywood actress with both an ironic edge and comic spark." Variety said, "Mae West films have made her the biggest conversation provoker, free space grabber, and all-around box office bet in the country."
Are you trying to show contempt for this court?
No, I'm doing my best to hide it.
Success, her career was dealt a colossal blow. In 1934, censorship guidelines in the film industry's production code changed and was to be diligently followed. Mae's double entendres, risque dialogue were no longer deemed acceptable. Lines of dialogue she would try to include in other movies were now under immense scrutiny and often cut. For a time, West tried working around it, using double entendres and suggestive body language, but censors began rejecting completed films and demanding expensive reshoots with their own story alterations. By restricting her artistic flair, Mae was shackled by the Hollywood system, thus taking a toll on her film career. The films became sanitized, audiences bored, ticket sales plummeted. The Hollywood Reporter labelled West box office poison, and her film career was effectively over.
Well, surely you don't mind my holding your hand.
It ain't heavy. I can hold it myself.
In 1954, she created a review show at the Sahara Hotel in Las Vegas with singing, comedy and sketches. The rebellious, outlandish and raunchy nature of the state meant that it was a match made in heaven, too hot for Hollywood to handle. A non-neutered icon could now flourish on her own terms. Now in her 60s, she could reconnect directly with her audience. In the country as a whole, there was a glutton of nightclub shows pandering to men, like burlesque and showgirls, where husbands would gaze and gawp over them as their wives politely sat next to them with zero personal titillation. Mae, ever the innovator, turned it on its head, surrounding herself on stage with a series of young, semi-naked male assistants who would act as enchanted, fawning stargazers, treating her like the modern-day goddess that she was. They were known as the musclemen. The submissive men would appear on stage in loincloths, where they would dance and flex. But to keep up her larger-than-life persona, she would demand total devotion, not just on stage, but also off it as well, having occasional sexual relationships with them, keeping them in line. Her promotion of the show was, "Men come to see me, but I also give the women something to see. Wall-to-wall men."
You impress me immensely. I'll keep you in mind as a summer replacement. Next.
It was 1955 when a 62-year-old Mae perused through a plethora of magazines. It was then, like a hawk, she zeroed in on Strength and Health magazine, where Man Mountain Mickey Hargitay flexed proudly on the front cover. That was when she eagerly hired him as being one of her most prized muscle men, alongside a particular favourite of hers, the besotted Mr. Baltimore, Paul Novak.
Here goes. I'm nasty, stubborn, and unreasonable. I got the rottenest temper this side of the Rockies, and, well, I behave just like an old witch.
In 1956, during their show at the Latin Quarter in New York, rising starlet Jayne Mansfield sat in the audience and immediately took a shine to Mr. Universe. When a waiter attended her table to ask what she would like, she allegedly declared, "I'll have a steak," and "the man on the left." Both fell for one another immediately. Both were married to other people, but they would engage in a whirlwind romance that would end in their respective divorces.
How now, brown cow, grazing in a thick thistle?
Cute.
Very cute.
As they got to know each other backstage, Mae stared daggers at them. Having demanded sole loyalty from Mickey, she was heard ranting for weeks about his relationship. Jayne was the new Hollywood sex symbol, seen as a direct descendant of the blonde bombshell template that Mae created. But not by choice. Mae accused her of being a pale imitation, copying her walk, talk and mannerisms, with a sardonic Jayne clapping back, "I've always admired her. I think she's doing very well, for her age." Jayne had the audacity to steal the affection away from her favourite muscle man. She scarcely started seeing him except on stage, with his new love Jayne whisking him away the moment his bicep-flexing chores were over. Mae was dead set against the romance, demanding he drop the cheap blonde, stop making a spectacle of himself. To the contrary, he pleaded that he was deeply in love with Jayne. They knew they were right for each other the moment he locked eyes on her as she sipped on a milkshake in the Latin Quarter, and she lovingly glared back at him.
I had fun with you, and I thought you were having fun with me, too.
Was this a Tinseltown love story, or a sordid union breaking the sanctity of marriage. The media's attention focusing on their relationship caused copious animosity and jealousy. Mickey was demoted from his Mr. Universe act as part of the production.
Miss West, I simply meant we'd like to hear about some of the unusual men, the men who are offbeat.
Well, a smart girl never beats off any man.
Mae protecting him from Jayne, Jayne protecting him from Mae. Mickey was not used to having such a glaring spotlight shone on him, while two queens of controlling media narratives fought over him. The three of them throwing bobs at each other via the press was doing no one any favours. There was only one option left to quell the unfolding drama. On June the 6th, 1956, at the Casino Royal, Mae West held a dressing room press conference to control the sordid narrative. With her loyal Mr. Baltimore, Paul Novak, behind her, incensed with Mickey and his attention-seeking ways, she apologized to the cameras for what she perceived as the horrible publicity and the effect the sordid affair was having on the production, stating, "It's a clean show. I don't like the things that have been said. Mickey's been hurting the show and hurting himself." 3 journalists were in the room when Mickey burst in, hoping to defend his good name. Novak glowered intensely at Mickey, accusing him of having too much ambition. Then, out of nowhere, showering him from behind with a melee of punches and kicks, sending him to hospital with bruises, cuts, and broken bones. Mae responded with a sympathetic, "I'm very sorry what happened, but he's been asking for it." The case went to court, suing Paul and Mae for damages, for which Paul claimed self-defense. Though his black eye and bust lip had healed, Mickey said he'd suffered nightmares and significant career damage from the assault, claiming $100,000 in damages. Mae claimed that she objected strongly to him running around with a woman that wasn't his wife, and believed the negative publicity was affecting the show and her reputation. The case was ultimately dismissed. Mae stated after court proceedings wrapped that Mickey was very professional before he got involved with Jayne, and that if Jayne wasn't so focused on being a horrible publicity seeker, maybe she'd have time to learn acting. But Jayne's feeling was that Mae was being overly controlling and possessive, wanting Mickey all to herself. Mae using the sanctity of marriage as reason for her ire didn't seem quite plausible considering her own relationship affairs. She built her career on celebrating female sexual freedoms and highlighting promiscuity as not being a mortal sin. Jayne Mansfield was larger than life, intellectually commodifying her sexuality, manipulating media to her advantage, and enchanting people with her charisma and quick wit. All attributes associated with Mae West. Perhaps losing a man to a version of herself 40 years younger stung her ego, and was maybe a sign that her powers may be fading. And for Mae, maybe arranging a desirable man to beat up another could portray to the public that she still had virile men fighting over her.
I must retire now. I'm a creature of habit. I hope you will sleep well. Good night.
Mickey and Jayne wed in 1958, buying her a dazzling 10-carat diamond ring. Then they purchased a Hollywood mansion called the Pink Palace with a glorious heart-shaped pool. They starred in their own striptease Vegas show Tropicana Holiday at the Tropicana in Vegas, in which they performed various acrobatics. They'd star in 4 movies together, having 4 children. The marriage eventually did turn sour, following a series of affairs by Jayne. The pair divorced in 1964. Ever the gentleman, Mickey remained loyal to her, acting as Jayne's best friend, while her personal life went through turmoil up until her untimely passing in 1967.
She was a great lady, and I'm very, very pleased to had this great experience.
He was devoted to their children, prioritizing them over his own career ambitions. Even acting on TV, eventually with his real-life daughter, Mariska.
I called 911.
Sir, could you make out what he was saying?
It's a mistake, it's a mistake.
When the Vegas review was over, Mae kept a lower profile, occasionally appearing on television and starring in the occasional movie. The hippie counterculture moment of the 60s caught up with Mae's personal and public philosophies, becoming a living cultural icon, immortalized on the cover of the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's album.
When you were 20, I only had to wait 1 year. But now you've grown up, your future is sewn up. You can do more than vote and drink beer.
Whenever she appeared on screen, she still maintained the same immovable persona that she cultivated in the 1910s. Her flirtations, intonations, glamorous outfits, and biting wit. Even in the 1978 movie Sextet, at the age of 85, starring the likes of Timothy Dalton, Alice Cooper, and Ringo Starr, she played the lead, a sizzling elderly actress looking to consummate a sixth marriage with a much younger man.
Stiff upper lip, you know?
You gotta start somewhere.
Though the movie was panned by critics, her fans adored it. It was the same scenario she happily accepted all the way back in the 1920s. Though critics stated that her dating younger men in a movie, it just wasn't believable. Her actual live-in monogamous partner from 1955 to 1980 was the 30-year younger Mr. Baltimore, Paul Novak, who doted on her in her later years, helping her with diet, exercise, and providing devoted companionship up until her passing in 1980, stating, "I believe I was put on this earth to take care of Mae West." To conclude, years later, Jayne Mansfield stated, "I've never feuded with Miss West. I just fell in love with Mickey. To me, in fact, she was our Cupid."
Too much, too hot to handle. Too hot to handle.